Zelda Breath of the Wild made its mark on gaming history in 2017 as a fully open world instalment in the much adored The Legend of Zelda series. The game divided fans down the middle by introducing new concepts, abandoning some series staples, and including some mechanics that pose minor annoyances for some. As a huge Zelda fan, I was initially deterred by the open world, the desertion of dungeons in favour of shrines and divine beasts, the stamina wheel, the horse taming, degrading weapons, and the general overall difficulty level. I can certainly see why some existing fans might favour the previous games. However, Breath of the Wild is absolutely fantastic if you are willing to embrace the new. With Tears of the Kingdom being released very soon, I am sure that there are people out there that are revisiting or trying for the first time Breath of the Wild. So today I wanted to provide a few tips to help you get the most out of this game, especially since the game doesn't hold your hand at all. Not a new thing for Zelda games, however, this game is much more freeform open world. It has so many different cogs turning and plenty of secrets to uncover. So here we go. Here's 6 things I wish I knew before playing Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Wake up, Link.
You start the game on the Great Plateau after Link wakes up following a 100-year slumber to find that Ganon has once again been wreaking havoc, that pesky little devil. It is tempting in open world games to charge forth towards the horizon just to see what's there. The excitement of exploring. But I would advise that you spend as much time on the Great Plateau as possible. The reason for this is that the Great Plateau serves as a tutorial-style microcosm for the rest of the game. Everything you learn here can be applied to the wider world, and there is much knowledge to be gained, such as cooking tips. Although the game leaves you to your own devices to figure out how things work, there is an old man who loosely serves as a guide for the Great Plateau, providing hints in his dialogue and actions on what to do. This place is home to resources and equipment that should be hoarded as much as possible to better prepare you for what lies ahead. What you pick up can also be sold for rupees later in the game, since money is surprisingly hard to come by, despite everything being so expensive. In my first playthrough, the minute I got my glider, I was gone because I was so excited to see what was further afield. But I quickly learnt my lesson. By rushing like this, I realised that there was so much that I didn't know about the game because I hadn't took the time to learn them. I just made things unnecessarily harder for myself. In my second playthrough, however, I absolutely scoured every corner of the Great Plateau, looting, harvesting materials, hunting, hoarding weapons, and I spent a lot of time experimenting with cooking. I was greatly rewarded for my efforts because I felt much more in tune with the game and I was better prepared. On the Great Plateau, you also get introduced to how free the game is in terms of gameplay and how you approach situations. For example, you are given several options of how to traverse a cold environment to get to a shrine. You can either mix cold-resistant elixirs, gain cold-resistant armour, or use torches and fire to warm your path. It's entirely up to the player. So yes, do not be in a rush to leave the Great Plateau. Staying true to the old Zelda formula, you should definitely speak to everyone you come across. Some NPCs have red markers above them signifying a side quest, but that doesn't mean you should only speak to them. Some NPCs give hints on where to go, what to do, specific points of interest, and some give you challenges, are merchants, give you gifts, or even ask you to follow them. It's important to note that when it comes to side questing and making friends, what time of day affects what quests show up and where NPCs are. Sometimes you will bump into a traveller in the wild who seems harmless, but when you speak to them they quickly reveal themselves to be Yiga clan members in league with Ganon and they want to kill you. Small consequence for being friendly. Thankfully they aren't that tough, just pesky, and they drop half decent weapons when defeated as well. Also be sure to interact with everything. Not only are Korok puzzles plentiful, but you might be surprised with what happens if you interact with an object. You will likely come across many random encounters while traversing the world, so you should come to the aid of a civilian in distress, and they normally reward you. This one is a short entry, but 100% worth mentioning. Speak to everyone and make friends. In Breath of the Wild, you want to hoard like you have never hoarded before. Obviously, you cannot hoard weapons, bows or shields due to the limited inventory slots, but you can hoard everything else you come across. This is an extremely important tip. You will spend a lot of the game cooking with ingredients, using resources to upgrade gear, or exchanging materials for special services or money. Hoard Everything. Plants, flowers, monster parts, wood, fruit and veg, meat and fish, rupees, critters, fairies, different ores, and anything else you can get your hands on. If anything, these things will be good to sell because this is the main and easiest way you gain rupees in the game. Different areas will likely have different resources too, so be sure to loot and kill everything. The best thing to sell is ore. When you get to Death Mountain, ore deposits are everywhere, and it is very easy to pocket a ton of amber, topaz, opal and other rare ore that can be sold for anywhere between 30 and 500 rupees each, depending on the ore's rarity. It is also a good idea to beat up mini bosses you come across because they tend to drop a lot of ore and other rarer items. The starting area, the Great Plateau, has great natural resources in abundance, which is another reason not to be in a rush to leave. Additionally, when you get to Kakariko Village, you will likely come across a glowing blue spirit rabbit called Bloopy en route to the Great Fairy Fountain. If you can hit it, the rabbit will drop rupees. Bloopy can mostly be found here and in the woods east of Dueling Peak's stable, but it is very skittish, so it's best to approach stealthily. One of my biggest gripes about this game was the limited inventory space. It is so stingy, particularly when weapons break all the time. There is no external storage in a traditional sense either, and the only saving grace is that weapons, shields and bows are very easy to come by. The only way to increase your inventory space is to search Hyrule in its entirety for creatures called Koroks, who gift you a Korok seed. Finding Koroks normally requires you to solve a simple puzzle, such as inserting a missing stone in a stone circle, diving into the centre of a ring of lily pads, lifting stones, and other minor tasks. You can then give these seeds to a large Korok named Hestu in exchange for an extra slot in one of your inventory categories. There are 900 Koroks in the game, but you genuinely do not need to find them all. You need 441 to max out your inventory in all categories, and the rewards for finding all 900 is basically nothing. There are 17 Koroks located just on the Great Plateau. Note that Hestu doesn't stay in the same place. You can first find him in the south of Kakariko Village before he moves to the Riverside Stable. His final location is the Korok Forest, where he will stay for the rest of the game. Admittedly, finding 441 Koroks to max out your inventory is a monumental task, but it is worth doing, and if you struggle solving a Korok puzzle, you can simply mark the location on your map and return later. You can also purchase a house fairly early in the game, which allows you to buy wall mounts so that you can display and store weapons, bows and shields. This is very useful because once in a while you will acquire a strong weapon you might want to keep until you reach a difficulty spike, but you don't want it to take up a precious inventory slot. You can purchase a house by speaking to the builders in Hatento Village. At first the builder's boss will ask for an outrageous price, but if you agree he will lower it to 3,000 rupees and 30 wood bundles. And you get one free wall mount in the deal. There is a shop nearby, so if you are short of rupees, you can easily sell stuff to make up the shortfall. Once you have purchased the house, you can buy different components, most notably more wall mounts for storage. The first edition will cost 500 rupees, but the others will be 100 going forward. Note that every weapon in the game will eventually break. However, there are special weapons that can be reforged if you speak to the correct person and have the necessary materials ready. But this is a bit further into the game and I don't want to spoil anything, so let's move on. In Breath of the Wild, you have heart containers, which is basically your HP, and you have a stamina wheel that quickly depletes through climbing, swimming, gliding, and running. From the very start of the game, you can feel a sense of urgency to increase how many hearts you have and improve your stamina. A lot of the time you will die because your stamina runs out mid-swim, mid-glide or mid-climb and you either drown, fall to your death or an enemy one-hit kills you. It can be frustrating, but thankfully there is little consequence for dying, just minor backtracking. The way you get heart containers and stamina vessels is by completing shrines. There are 120 shrines dotted around Hyrule. You will have to complete the puzzles within to gain spirit orbs, which you can then exchange for either an additional heart container or more stamina. It is debatable as to whether it is better to invest spirit orbs into hearts or stamina. Increasing stamina will reduce the amount of environmental deaths you will experience, so I would say on a micro Great Plateau scale, I would definitely invest in stamina vessels. On a macro wider Hyrule scale, I would invest in 6 additional hearts, because you start the game with 3 hearts, gain 4 hearts for conquering the divine beasts, and you need a total of 13 heart containers to pull out the Master Sword. However, I'm here to tell you that it really doesn't matter in the slightest where you invest spirit orbs. There is a statue that can redistribute your spirit orbs to your liking for a fee. And there are ways to increase the amount of hearts or stamina you have temporarily. Note that temporary hearts will not work on the Master Sword. The key to boosting your hearts or stamina temporarily, alongside staying in soft beds in hotels, is becoming a master chef, which leads me nicely to my final tip. I cannot emphasise strongly enough the importance of cooking in this game. In other games you can easily get by if you ignore alchemy, cooking or any other form of ingredients mixing to get potions or other things. In Breath of the Wild, cooking is essential. You can cook 2 kinds of things, meals and elixirs. Elixirs require you to mix monster parts with different critters you find, and meals require food and plants. There are lots of different types of meals and elixirs you can create which grant the player either temporary boosts or elemental resistances. Hearty meals and elixirs give the player temporary bonus hearts, and endurance meals and elixirs give bonus stamina. These buffs are significant, and even if you only have 3 starter hearts, you can end up with 20 or more hearts temporarily by eating a hearty meal or drinking a hearty elixir. Most natural resources such as apples, acorns and meat can restore lost HP without needing to be cooked, but cooking them does increase its potency. Stamina can be restored by creating energizing meals or elixirs. Other stat boosting meals and elixirs include hasty, sneaky, mighty and tough, where the clue is in the name. Hasty increases movement speed, sneaky increases stealth, mighty gives an attack boost and tough rises defense. You can also create chili, spicy, fireproof and electro meals and elixirs. Chili boosts heat resistance, spicy increases cold resistance, fireproof is obviously fireproof, and electro enhances defense against electricity. This is very useful if you happen to wander into an area with a hazardous environment that you didn't foresee or bump into elemental enemies. Sometimes how to acquire elementally resistant armour is not immediately obvious or cheap, so having some of these meals or elixirs handy can save your life. Ingredients will have the quality it possesses in its name, or be named something synonymous, such as Silent Princess, which obviously fits under the sneaky category. If you want to get the most out of cooking, then it is also wise not to mix ingredients that have different effects. If you mix things with different buffs, they will cancel each other out, and you will either end up with dubious food, or something that merely restores HP rather than grant any desired special effect. So, there we have it. There's 6 things I wish I knew before playing Breath of the Wild. Admittedly, as an old school Zelda fan since the N64 days, I found it hard to let go of the old Zelda formula and embrace change, and I feel that this is an issue for a lot of Zelda fans. I initially sneered at the idea of not having dungeons or Epona or a set path of progression, but now I am kicking myself for not giving Breath of the Wild a real chance earlier. It really is a brilliant game, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Tears of the Kingdom has to offer. Let us know in the comments if you have any other useful tips not included in this video that you think other people should know about. I've been Heather at Amalgamingle, and thank you very much for watching.